Well, hello. Lots of changes to my level, as you can see, primarily the color of the house. Yeah, I wasn't really sold on the bricks. I'm not 100% sold on this, but I do quite like the way it drastically changes the look of the house. But yeah, more experimentation is required. Put in a swimming pool. You can't swim in it. As a matter of fact, you can see there's like an invisible box. It's a collision box to stop you from getting in the pool, because the water is essentially just a flat plane. I might change that. I'm not sure yet. The hedge maze is finished. Some interesting things coming with the hedge maze. I don't want to say too much or show you what's going on at the end of the hedge maze just yet. Another thing that I did was completely redesign the garden cottage. I've had the slight perceptual problem because when designing the main house, I specifically designed the rooms to be slightly larger than the rooms would be in a normal house, partially because it's a mansion and partially because I don't know, if you watch movies or TV series, generally the sets are more spacious than an actual house would be, just to like give the camera like a sense of space. So I specifically designed it like that. So when I designed the cottage, I had the same thing in mind, but when I actually then walked around in the cottage, it was just huge. It was comically huge inside. So I've completely rebuilt it. It's a little bit more realistic now. You can see there's still that sense of space, but I mean the kitchen was cavernous before and it feels a bit better now. Yeah. Anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about. We're here to talk about another system that I've implemented called the Chore Counter. Now, this is something I've been wanting to do since day one, and I finally found a way to make it work, and I'm quite excited about it. The idea is that in order to advance the game, you need to perform the kind of chores that a house sitter would do: watering plants, feeding pets, etc., etc. I needed a way for the game to keep track of that and to advance time as you complete chores. So let me just show you what this looks like in practice. If we start the game from here, there will obviously be layers to this. Like, you can't just go and water the plants. You need to find a watering can. Now, for the purposes of demonstration, you'll see, like, for instance, this flashlight, I've already got it set so that I have everything in my inventory already, including the watering can. So let's say we want to water a plant. Now, you won't be able to see it from here, partially because I've designed it like this, but the idea is the sun is going to move in the sky every time you do a chore, and it should be imperceptible from the angle at which you do the chore. Like, if I hit water plant now, it'll play a little watering can sound effect and move the sun. Now, you won't be able to see it now, but if we go and do a couple more of them, let's just find another plant. I get lost in this house so often, it's actually ridiculous. I don't even know what room I'm in half the time, which is good. That's kind of the feel. Oh, I've also put some paintings up, as you can see. Haven't gone any further along to animating them, although that code is there and ready to go, but I just wanted to place them for the time being. Okay, let's water another plant. Another system that's been implemented in the meantime is feeding the cat. So in order to feed the cat, you need cat food. Now, the one thing I haven't added to my inventory is cat food, because I wanted to test this. So if you go over to the cat bowl, you'll be told need cat food. So if we go into the pantry, find a tin of cat food and feed the cat, we'll get a fairly gross squelching sound. And let's water these herbs. And if we look outside now, I don't know if you can see that yet, but the sun is a lot lower in the sky than it was. Let's just go and do, there's some more plants upstairs that I can water. I think there's one in here as well, actually. Sorry, I know I'm sprinting around, but I don't want to waste people's time. Yeah, let's go upstairs. Oh, you can actually see it now. Yeah, you can see if you look outside, it's definitely getting darker. And like I said, if we go upstairs, and let's just get some lights on so we can see what we're doing. And water another problem. Let's try and do it so that you can see if you look out the window there. There we go. There we go. Now you can see. And yeah, the sun is just jumping positions in the sky at the moment. I can animate it, but the whole idea behind the sun moving in the sky as you finish chores is it should be imperceptible. I've got it set to make fairly big jumps now, but on a regular day in the game, there will be quite a few chores needed to finish, and also things that will distract you from your chores, the events that happen that will also advance time. So yeah, so the whole idea is when the chore counter reaches a certain number, the character will tell the player, okay, well, that's enough, I need to go to bed now, or something will happen, and that's how the game's events will be driven. So let's show you how the code works. So for a start, in the game mode blueprint, we have this custom event here called Advanced Chore Counter and a variable called Chore Counter, and this append function which just adds 1 to the specified value and then sets it. So obviously when we start, the Chore Counter is set to 0. How does the game know when we've completed a chore to advance the chore counter? Well, at the end of everything that could be classified as a chore, like feeding the cat and watering the plants, for instance, we have we call that function advanced chore counter, which just then appends this number. The question is, how do we know how to advance the sun? Now, this was a tricky bit. Now, in theory, you can use something called an event dispatcher, and I remember covering event dispatchers in that first month where I was doing tutorials, but honestly I went and looked over my notes and I don't know what I was thinking, but like they might as well be written in ancient Greek. Like I don't know what I was talking about, so I'll have to go and see if I've still got a copy of that video or go and do some more research. The idea behind an event dispatcher, in as much as I understand it, is you can call an event somewhere and it will apply to whatever the event dispatcher is doing will be done in a bunch of different places at once, which is functionality that I actually need for something else that I'm working on to do with the lights. You'll see I also have a variable called mains power. And the idea is if I set mains power to off, all the lights must go off at once. And then if I set mains power back to on, only the lights that were switched on when the mains power went off must switch back on. So this is a tricky bit of code that I'm working on that I will almost certainly need to use event dispatchers for. Now, like I said, I could have used an event dispatcher to handle the chore counter logic, but the system I went with is actually quite elegant, if I do say so myself. It may not be very efficient, but I'm quite pleased with it. So for some reason, and it's not a reason I understand, but for some reason you can only get the main light source in the game, in other words the sun, you can only set that as a reference in the level blueprint, as opposed to the game mode blueprint or the player blueprint or anywhere else. I'm sure there's some logic behind it, I don't know what it is. But yeah, so for that reason we've got the blueprint of essentially this map. And what it's doing is, at begin play, we set the sun to where I want the sun to be for this level, which is, I mean, if you're going to look here, yeah, that's pretty much where it is, sort of mid to late afternoon. And this little piece of code here just does that. It sets the sun's initial position. Then on event tick, so event tick is it checks something or does something every frame. Now this is dangerous, as you can imagine. Having code running on every single frame can slow things down rapidly. But in essence, all we're doing here is comparing two variables on every frame, which is not going to be using a lot of processor time at all. So essentially we're taking that chore counter variable from the game mode blueprint and we're comparing it to a new variable called chore counter check, try saying that 10 times fast, which is a local variable that I created here in the level blueprint. And we're just checking to see if they're the same. Now, obviously, in when you start the game, Chore Counter in game mode is set to 0, as you can see there. And the same is true of Chore Counter check here in the level blueprint. So we're just checking every frame to see if they're the same. If they're the same, we do nothing, you see. So if the condition of this Boolean is true, the code execution ends and it just keeps checking. If, however, they're different, we can assume that the Chore Counter has advanced. So what we then do is we immediately set Chore Counter check to match the Chore Counter, so that the next on event tick check will show that they're the same again and do nothing. But then we also, after we've done that, after we've set them to be the same, we move the sun by this variable here, sun movement in degrees, which is set at the moment to 5 degrees. Now, the beauty of having it done like this is every time I have a new level, it's essentially going to be a copy of this initial level that I've made, but with changes made to it depending on what day it is. And I can set this to be anything I like. Like if it's day 2 and we're starting at 9 in the morning, let's say, and I only have 10 chores for you to complete, I can make the amount of degrees the sun moves be quite large, so that you get the sense of time passing faster. I can customize it any way I like. And yeah, that's how that works. Quite pleased with this. Next up is, like I said, figuring out how to switch mains power on and off. And I must still make a video about the inventory system, which I will get to soon. And that's about it for today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to like and subscribe.